Hey, welcome, BS Friday. Mark Bare Naked Willie in the house. How are you, my friend?
Dave Cooper Live, BS Friday Live. Dave Cooper, I'm a happy brother.
I'm happy too, man. I can't believe we're into our second year of this already. We're having a great time, and we're going to continue having a great time because we have another great guest on the show today. Mark, what have you been up to, man?
Well, it's an exciting week. I've been prepping for episode 57 today all week. The only thing I've done is prep with our guest. Uh, I'm just excited for today. It's been a busy week, yes, Dave, but man, when Friday comes, I know, like you, I was up at 4 in the morning and getting stuff done so we could be here. But when this comes, I get such a rush and and the texts that pour in and everything. It's just beautiful. Love doing this with you, brother.
Yeah, likewise, man. We do have a lot of fun with this, not just on this show, but we do other things together off the show. And you're absolutely right. It's like Miles Biggs' book, right? Unseen work. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes to pull all this together, not just for us, but the amount of effort that the guests put into bringing us the best they have for our show so we can continue driving BS Friday, Passive House, Building Science, all of the great things forward.
The guest today, Dave, the amount of work that they put in, they actually built a house in order to have this presentation. A house. Yeah, that if there's a little secret, I think everyone knows who our guest is today, but super happy to be here and
Yeah.
thanks for everyone that waited. There was a little glitch with the beauty of electronics. So thank you for everyone joining us today and every Friday. We really appreciate you being here, and that's why we do this.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, everybody, we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and
Twitch.
And Mark, why are we live on Twitch?
Well, Greg Ugaldi, right? He turned us on to it, Dave, because he says we need a lot of people that do BIM and incredible things like that. So these folks that do Minecraft, they follow Twitch, and then we bring them into the building community because they're the next generation. It's going to take care of our existing buildings.
That's right.
And the buildings yet to come. So thank you, Greg.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. And yesterday I had a phone call with a gentleman from Australia, Sydney, and guess where they watch us from? Twitch as well. So it is gaining some traction and gaining some steam. So we love it. And Mark, we're only about 100 plus shy from 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. So if you are out there, please go and subscribe to our channel and share the channel and ask other people to subscribe. Once we hit 1,000, we get a lot more options that we can do. We can live stream different platforms. It opens the doors for many, many. So thank you so much for all of that, Mark. And I really do appreciate you supporting us.
Dave, there's 150 people that took the time to register for today. So if we could put the YouTube channel in the LinkedIn chat, either now or after the show, I invite everyone to just do the like and then do the share, right? Please share. If you don't share, who's going to share with you, right?
That's right.
You got to bring something to the table to share. Someone has an apple, someone has a Hostess Twinkie or whatever that is, right?
Yeah, I definitely like a Hostess Twinkie, and my gut is showing it more and more on this trip. So, all right, listen. So we have a virtual introduction today of sorts, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. And you're absolutely right. Our next guest really did build their own house. And that, as Mark would say, helped them get on the show. But they've been doing a lot in our industry. They didn't need to build a house to be on our show. That's kind of just a fun way to tease and I guess poke the bear, so to speak. So, but with that said, why don't we bring on our virtual guest and have a video played? What do you think? All right, here it comes.
Hey, guess what? It's Brian Iverson, U.S. Engineered Wood, aka T-Stud. So I get the good fortune to introduce the next victim of Fridays, and with Dave Cooper and Mark Willie at the helm. And so today I get to introduce the brightest bulb on the tree in the poly ISO world, BASF, Lisa Render. So Lisa just built her own house, 233% more energy efficient than the standard house built in climate zone 5, because that's where she's at. And I commend her for that. But I am going to tell you one little funny. So being so smart and being so sharp, she did her test for ACH. She couldn't figure out why it turned out so bad until she figured out that nobody ever closed up the dryer vent. So guess what? We're all not perfect. Anyway, without further ado, here's Lisa Render.
How awesome is that, Mark? How awesome is that? Let's bring Lisa into the show.
Hey there, great. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for sharing, Mark and Dave. I appreciate you letting me come on and talk about my fun project.
Well, we are so grateful to have you here today. Talk about your project. Talk about, your new role with your new title. There's all kinds of great things happening with Lisa Render. I guess I'm starting to get the feeling that everybody should know Lisa Render.
So I love construction. It's always changing. There's always something new.
That's right. That's right. Go ahead, Mark. Mark's itching. I can see when he does this, he's got something to say.
Well, I'm itching with excitement. I'm blessed to be able to speak with you before the show, right? And I think many people that are tuning in today are good friends of yours from the industry, because you're such an open and sharing person, and to have you on the show today representing a personal project is really a delight. We all know your dedication to the industry, and when people take the time to create their own dwelling and a dwelling of lasting impression the way that you do, that not only inspires the community around you, but it inspires the community of our industry. And much respect to you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Yeah, very much respect to you. And hey, listen, if you guys are tuning in, I think there's a comment that there's quite a few people in the chat looking to get in. We did start a couple minutes late. We had some tech issues there. So if you are following this, if you want to just copy your URL and paste it in the chat for us, it'll let everybody know. And I'm sure Jen's in there doing it anyhow right now. Love it. So thank you for giving us that shout out. It was Dr. Rebecca Reynolds that I saw. So thank you, Dr. Rebecca. All right. So with that said, Lisa, let's hop right into this. We want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, because this guy right here's mother, Mark's Willie's mother, who tunes in just about every week, will call your mother and get the real scoop for us. It has been done in the past. Wouldn't you say so, Mark?
Hey, let's bring it on. I love it. We're all here because someone created us, and we hope that Lisa's mom gets to heckle her about this video as well.
I'm sure she will at some point. So I'm going to jump start a few years actually and skip the whole birth process. But at age 5, I kind of forgot that I've always been in construction. It's one of those things that's in my blood. When other 5-year-old girls are all playing with their Barbies and playing teacher in school and all these other things, I'm actually playing in my mom's flower bed, unbeknownst to her, and I'm digging it up to make a multi-level parking garage. So that's how I spent a lot of my early years, is drawing underwater communities, little structures, digging up and building things 3D with Hot Wheels involved, because that's another big thing for me is cars. But the real story is I kind of forgot it for about 25 years, that construction was always what I wanted. I went through 7 different industries and then finally landed back in construction, where I should have been all along. It's the right one for me, and I'll never leave.
Love it. Well, you're definitely in the right hands for sure here with us today, because guess what? We love construction as well. And you know what, Mark? We talk about this on every show. The inspiration for people in the construction space, whether it is working or innovating, always comes from somewhere in the heart, right? Yours started in a flower bed. Who would have thought? Who would have thought, right? This is where we could all look back on it and be like, yeah, I'm in.
Absolutely. The sandbox story we haven't heard yet. And almost every construction project starts with a pile of sand,
That's right.
right? It's amazing. So a parking structure though in a sandbox, you got a new one for me there. Love to see the R value of sand. Love that.
Is there an R value for sand? I have to ask.
There's an R value for everything.
There's an
I
R
know,
value
but-
for everything.
Yeah.
I love
Some
it.
are higher than others.
That's right. And for our friends across the pond, that's U value, and we're still Imperial, and we're still R, and you're still U, and you're still metric. So, but one thing we can all agree, and from both sides of the pond, is comfort.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about. Lisa, why don't you just give us you got a new title now. Tell us a little bit about your new role. And then what we're going to do is we're going to jump into your presentation and take people on a journey with you. So, but I think it's really important for people to understand how much you do for our industry and who you work with and where you were in this new role you're in and what you're going to be doing moving forward.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, I've been kind of dancing around the edges of the offsite construction world for quite a while. When it started in my previous job, actually working for Passload, I became introduced to the panelized, primarily for national builders, and I learned a little bit about it. And through research, I kept continuing to learn. Then when I came to work for BASF, I started learning about the whole community more as a whole, holistically. Everything from SIPs to, your prefabricated panels to the full-on modular and the whole gamut. And so I've kind of been dancing around the edges, working on a project for a very long time. And we're finally about to launch that project. So that's what's kind of brought about the change of my titles, because I have a complete change in responsibility that's not kind of a hybrid of infrastructure and construction anymore. It's entirely focused on offsite construction. And the great part is that's really where my heart lies. I love all kinds of construction. Anything being built, I'm all about it. But when it comes to offsite construction, it's really struck a chord with me that I'm really thankful that I have that opportunity to work full time in that market. And if you kind of look behind me a little bit there, let's see if I can do this the right direction. There's a sign there about our new brand that we're moving to market. Hasn't fully been launched. We're anticipating probably about Friday. But if you'd like a little hint for what we have in mind, it's tied in a little bit to how I built my house. But it's a little bit outside of that as well. You can get a hint by Googling HP plus TER space 1403-02. And when you get there, if you check out section 6.7.12, you'll have a very good glimpse of what we've got coming. And it's just the beginning, because we're looking at helping to develop some new materials as well as some new processes to help with efficiencies in the offsite market.
So I love that. You said next Friday. If it's going to go public next Friday, Mark, what about if we start our show with the announcement of the new product, and Lisa Render maybe can join us on that? Because one of the things we do on our show is we bring new things to market, because our following isn't just BS people. It is the system built people, building systems and building science. That's the BS part of this. What's your thoughts there, Mark?
Why would I disagree with you, Dave? HP plus TER, and then there was one other portion. Let's think, if you're up to it, Dave, depending on where you and Jennifer and the family are on, maybe we could start the show 10 minutes early and have a secret start for people, and we can do this HP plus TER launch.
Ooh, like an invite members club type thing, I love it. But guess what? Everybody's a member in our group. So as long as you know,
it's not just the cool kids, it's not just the hot people, it's all the comfortable folks.
There you go.
That's right. Whether you have a lot of hair or no hair, you're welcome in our club.
Or where the hair is at, face or head.
That's right. Well, all right, let's get into this and give people what they came here for. So, Lisa, when we jump into this, we'll go for, about 5-10 minutes, and then let's take a break somewhere in there. We want to start talking to our audience. If you do have a question as we're going through this presentation, please put a Q in front of the question. It makes it easier for us to find. And you might see your name just flash up on the screen as we're talking here. It's just Jennifer giving shout outs to people because we have been getting so many questions on the last few shows that we really want to focus on the questions, but we also want to give the comments out there too. So we're going to try and do a little bit of both. Outside of that, Lisa, I'm going to pull up your presentation right now. Are you ready for it?
All set. Thank you.
All right. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. You just tell me when you want me to go to the next slide and we will make that happen for you.
Okay. And we're going to go pretty quick. I don't want this to be the old vacation slideshow here. I'm really excited about this. I think there's some good information, but I'm not going to spend a ton of time. So, who builds in the middle of a pandemic? Me, I do. Literally, we started, we sold our previous house and started this process the weekend that COVID shut everything down. We've been planning it for years. And late March, we started the process, which meant my builder couldn't literally start my home until early June because of the forced shutdowns. Fortunately, we were just before the extreme lumber prices, but they were starting to rise at that point in time. So what I love about my energy efficient HP Plus home, all kinds of things. It's just kind of an overview there. Go ahead and flip to the next page here. These are just kind of the things I'm going to run through. This is a high performance HP Plus wall system is what I used. Go ahead and flip. And this is what it looks like. It just has some basic components. One of the primary ones, if you notice, is it moves you to advanced framing. Now, not everybody takes advantage of that, which my builder opted not to. It was actually a little bit less expensive at that point in time to build with 16-inch on center than get the engineering review he felt was necessary to do so. So we stuck with 16 inches on center, but primarily it's set up for 24. It has continuous insulation on the outside, typically an R5. It also includes closed cell spray foam. What you don't see in here is there's no OSB. So we were ahead of the curve on kind of removing some of that lumber, whether it be the OSB or, again, potentially the studs as well. Then you've got your weather resistant barrier. You've got your sealants that you always want in place for making it a little bit more airtight, and then whatever type of cladding you want. So go ahead and change that screen and we'll kind of look at how that looks at specifically on my home. Okay. Go ahead. Yep, you were right on track. Right we have a 25 PSI R10 neopor, which was placed under the slab and all the way around the perimeter. So it literally goes underneath and all up along the sides. Go ahead and flip.
Yeah, Lisa.
Yeah.
So some of the folks aren't familiar with this. So if this is your foundation here, then you mentioned an R10. Can you tell the folks the thickness of that and the size of the sheet that it comes to bring a little depth?
Yeah, great question. Actually, and that's one of the things that I love about neopor. I had to go to get my R10. I had to go to 2 1/8 inch. Now, legitimately here in zone 5, it's cold enough here that I could have just gotten away with 2 inches because this particular material performs better as it gets colder. Mm-hmm. But I was more comfortable with the 2 1/8. And then I got it in 9-foot sections instead of 8-foot sections, just to make it simpler for the builder to put it on, because I have got 9-foot ceilings. So it's easily customizable for thickness or length. So that's one of the great beauties of that product is you've got a lot of flexibility in what it comes in.
So the detail that I liked and that I heard from that is, so there's different thicknesses based on the R that you're shooting for. Mm-hmm. There's the 9-foot wall. So you had a 9-foot versus what most people would guess is the 8-foot is the limit, but you're like, no, we went to 9 and it wasn't 2 inches. It was 2 1/8. But then you said something as well. And you said when it's cold, it actually performs better. This is important because when people think about an R value, they might read what's on a label, but they're never informed, or perhaps they're unaware that in different temperature zones that value is not being achieved. So you made the distinction very, very clearly. You said, I needed it to perform better because in Michigan, we actually have this thing called cold, right? And you didn't want your insulation to not perform well when it's cold because that's when you want your insulation. Love it.
I'm all about comfort.
Yeah, for sure. And just so we can give the full picture here, how thick are your foundation walls, the concrete, and what are they, 2,500, 3,500 PSI?
You know, they're 6 inches thick, and I can't tell you the PSI.
Okay.
Concrete's not one of my areas of specialty. I should know that, and I don't.
That's okay. And then also, it looks like you're on a slope lot, so I'm assuming that you're draining the daylight, which is always one of the best solutions to keep that water away, because that's one of the biggest issues we tend to deal with. And the way that you put the wrap on the neopor on the concrete itself, does that not only help with insulation, but does it also work as that full vapor barrier to that slab undergrade?
It does both jobs, and it also relieves hydrostatic pressure. Just by nature, it's going to do that as well. So
Wow.
they still did the waterproofing, damp proofing,
Yeah.
on the wall, but it does several jobs. That's, again, great benefit of it.
And for a lot of people that do not understand the term hydrostatic pressure, basically that is the groundwater pushing up from underneath of your home. It's not always the rain that causes it running down the sidewalls. We have a natural ebb and flow. All ships rise together, as what we hear in the world. So there's hydrostatic pressure that pushes up, and I guess that gives it another barrier to help whip it away. I love it. Okay, thank you.
You want the water to be down and out, and you want the insulation to be dry. Right?
That's right.
100%.
Perfect.
So go ahead. Yeah, there we go. And here's basically the way that I built the walls using the neopor. Again, you can see the cross bracing there on the right. That just gave it a little bit of extra structural support where it was needed. And then I've used the 2x4 studs. I opted not to go with 2x6 because it was, again, kind of overkill for my goals. I didn't have any specific passive house or net zero ready or any of those. I just wanted it to be comfortable and, kind of a mid-priced home. So I used the R10 neopor. Then you've got as the sheathing, then you've got the WRB beyond that. In the front of the house, we had LP board. I don't know if you remember the picture from the very beginning. So I used the dimple wrap on that because I wanted to have additional drainage plane for that area there, and everything else just had the traditional Tyvek because I've got the your standard vinyl siding that's so common here in the Midwest.
It's a beautiful wall, and I love the picture on the right, of course, with the bracing and the light showing through. The picture on the left is perfect. You could see, first of all, it's an uncluttered working area. They have the tools that are needed. You could see the attention to detail and people in action, right? The best job site videos are the ones with people in action. But I love how you could see the framing members, the rough openings, the neopor, and then this is the LP you're speaking of, and it's perfect because you're stopping the thermal and you're stopping the drive. I love that.
Yeah.
And there's actually two things on here that I'll bring up again later as things that I wish I could have done differently, but I'll cover those kind of all at once, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I do have a question, Mark. Maybe you know this as well. With that neopor, when you're driving in or installing that, is that screwed on, nailed on, glued on? And then once the penetrations go through that, is it self-sealing? Can you maybe explain that to our viewers?
Probably done with cap nails, right, Lisa?
That's typically how you can screw it. I've seen people do it. Cap nails are one of the best ways to do it. I've seen it done with the cap staples. I'm not as big a fan because you've got to have, reasonable penetration in there, about 3/4 of an inch, bite into your stud to make sure you've got a solid attachment because you're going to be spraying some high pressure foam on the other side of that. You want to make sure it's on there solid. If you actually flip the slide, I think you'll see the connections that give you a little better picture of that. Okay, so they taped it one more time.
Yeah.
This next one will have there we go. You can see on this slide here on the right, a couple of different cap options, and that's going to help with that self-sealing. This is the proper way to do it. I've got a slide from where my framer did it a little differently. But this is primarily how they did it on the house. So there was a couple of errant nails straight through the WRB.
Okay.
But
So
that's how it should be done. And you can kind of see the white ones along the bottom. And then up higher, they switched over to the normal cap nails with the orange ring.
So it's a 3/4 inch embedment when going into a wood fiber, or is the requirement that it goes into the stud, or is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so this is fun, right? So uh, I would venture to say that a large portion of the audience, Dave, hasn't seen this. They're
No.
not using cap nails to pop this in to OSB or plywood. They're using it to go into the studs.
Yeah.
You just have to say that 3 or 4 times in a row. There is no OSB, there is no plywood. That wasn't needed. So
Well,
it's the embedment into there. Beautiful. And of course, every carpenter is they're gonna try different things, like Dave said, a screw, a nail, and whatnot. And this slide's perfect. Thank you for that added depth.
yeah, and that bottom right picture really shows that, Mark. You don't see a sublayer of plywood or OSB in there, and you actually see that is pressed right against the framing that is there. And I also want to point out too, you're using 2x4 framing, which works in your zone. But if you're looking at this, depending on where you are in the country and the world and what climate zone you're in, you might be in a 2x6 world like New England. So the only reason that you're using 2x4 is that's what is required to meet the requirements where your zone is. Love it.
Still got R27 within that 2x4
That's amazing.
stud. So that's a lot of how I got away with it. Was I still got the R value I wanted.
That's right.
I can tell you, I've done 2x6 structures that are not R27.
Yeah, no doubt.
So yeah, go ahead and change that one to the next one. And here's where it goes a little bit into the air barrier. And you're getting some of that air barrier from the closed cell spray foam that goes directly onto the neopore from the inside. You're spraying that. So that's also adding some structural integrity. You're getting a structural bump from that. So literally your difference between a 2x4 stud built home and a 2x6, you're going to come out ahead with the 2x4 when you've got 1.5 inches of spray foam in there versus 2x6 and a bat product or, some blown in product.
So Lisa, just a small pause from the presentation because of your familiarity with foams. Are all closed cells foam, do they all bring structural strength, or is there a variance in that part of the industry as well?
There is a variance of sorts. We're the only ones who've actually gone through and done the testing that TER 1403 that I mentioned earlier, that's actually where it supports the structural integrity, and there's design loads in there that you can calculate. And that's part of what you're using to help get to that 24-inch on center, is that structural bump you're getting specifically from wall-tight closed cell spray foam. Nobody else has done that testing. So it's a very unique system in that regards.
I totally hear that. It echoes well, because oftentimes when people are searching insulation, they're only thinking of the resistance, right? The R value.
Mm-hmm.
But because you have the third-party testing on that, now you're able to make transformation. And as you said, the builder could have done 24 on center with a 2x4 because of the rigidity and structural support that the certified foam gives. That's a huge distinction. So not all tapes are the same. And let's face it, not all cheeses are the same, right? There's different flavors out there.
So true.
There definitely is. And I think once you combine that foam board with the insulation that you're tying all of this together, I mean, it just even gets stronger and stronger. I mean, it's quite amazing. I mean, it's kind of like how a ship hull is built in some of these, like a Boston whaler, right? It's the same concept.
Yeah.
I want to know where you got your crystal ball, because in our lifetimes, there's 2 topics that happen after church, right? Someone talks about the price of fuel at the pump, and someone talks about a sporting event. But in these days, people are talking about the price of wood and you have a 2x4 wall. I'm still like, I'm going to say this 10 times. I'm going to totally repeat it like a broken record. You have a 2x4 wall, and I have one in front of me, of course. You have a 2x4 wall, and you have no plywood or OSB. So, hey, folks, right? You're our audience. This is why we're doing this.
That's right.
You got problems with wood prices? Go with a 2x4 if it's okay for your area, and go with structural foam and a neopor. It's brilliant. That your crystal ball, Lisa, is amazing.
I wish it was a crystal ball. We've actually developed it years ago. It's just finally come about where all the stars aligned, from outside factors. But I've only eliminated the OSB from my walls, not from my roof. That I opted to leave in place. So just to make sure that part was clear and nobody misunderstands. Sure. My guess is you probably could do that. It's not how I built, though.
It depends on a roof and a roof line and all that, but the surface area of a roof compared to the 4 to 5 or 6 walls of a wall assembly, it's just a total different square footage. So we talk about the benefits, and you checked more boxes than I knew existed.
Yeah, if I was building that way today, the savings would be significant.
Yeah, there's a case study. There's a real case study.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think, Lisa, you may not think you have a crystal ball, but your timing for this product has been, obviously it's amazing, whether it's by luck, but most luck comes from hard work and research. It doesn't just fall into place. And for those of you out there watching, and some of you are asking if the show's every Friday, it is every Friday. So yes, thanks for tuning in. And if you are looking for alternate ways to build in today's time, BS Friday is a show that you want to start looking at for sure. We are always talking about the latest and greatest new technologies and better ways to do something. And there's several solutions out there. So looking forward to all the new people that have tuned in today. There you go. Dr. Rebecca Reynolds on the screen. Thank you so much.
The good doctor. Yep. And besides the building science and construction we're talking about today, Dr. Rebecca, you'll find that folks like Lisa, and people like Dave Cooper and myself and Jennifer, it's not just about what manufacturers are doing. It's not just about what's being built on site. It's what's being engineered, designed in the digital format, and produced, that's right, in a building and delivered like pizza.
Yeah,
better than pizza. It stays together.
And you have less waste because we're not getting rid of cardboard on our buildings. They just go together like Legos. I love it. Love it. Love it. All right. So let's get back to the presentation here. More up there. Dr. Reynolds, I'm so glad to be part of this. I'm not a contractor, but I was nailing down a roof at age 5. Yes.
I'm not my dad building.
I love it. My dad brought me to work with him as he built homes and garages. Here's a story that a lot of young people have grown up with, right? This world is made up of small businesses, builders, carpenters, plumbers, electricians, mechanical contractors, and so many young people out there have seen their families go to work, right? And seen the hard work, seen the scars on the hands, all the things that have happened. And that's still happening, but we're smarter about it today. And this is what's so great about our conversations. We are now working smarter, not harder. And we're bringing digital technology, digital twins. We're bringing offsite manufacturing. We're bringing products like Lisa is talking about with the neoprene today, where it's not as hard as it used to be because we have the tools and the smarts to do it smarter. And I think that's the key to this. So we really appreciate you sharing that with us.
I have a little reflection that Lisa and I talked about this week that came up based on that last viewer. I was telling Lisa a story about how when we were growing up, we built wood frame walls in my uncle's backyard on a concrete slab, and then we would truck them to the front. And during the week, he would put up the buildings with his partner. So Dave, we were paid to put the hammer to the nail twice. Every time you had to hit the nail more than twice, that came out of your budget, not my uncle's. But here's the funny part about that story that you triggered it, Rebecca, is what I was telling Lisa and what we were talking about is people say, well, I've always done it this way. Well, I've always done it this way. And that's a common theme that you hear in our industry. And the answer is you're absolutely incorrect, because you're seldom using that hammer and that nail. And I guarantee you're not chopping down that tree and cutting it down and carrying it to the job site. You are using incredible materials from incredible companies and using these amazing battery powered devices that make no noise to install it, right? It's not that 35-pound framing gun with the large compressor you used to have. All this stuff has changed. So we're not doing it the same. Get over yourselves and look what's out there. It's amazing. Again, 2x4, no plywood.
I think we need a Mark Willie soapbox. I love it. A big one. I don't know. It might take up the whole screen. I love it. I love it. All right. Hey, Mark. Well, guess what? This is about Lisa Render today. So we're going to hop back into this. Lisa, take us through a few more slides. Get us under roof. Get us watertight or what, right? And then we'll go to some comments and questions, which Jen will load up for us. All right. Back to the presentation.
Sorry, not about me. It's about the house and the system and keeping comfortable. So we've got the closed cell spray foam there, giving you that air barrier at 1.5 inches. And this is the WRB. Remember, we talked about those cap nails being used, and there's a clear nail hole right through there that's not keeping anything out. If you look just above the 0 there, a little ways, big dimple will show you the nail that was shot through that with nothing around it. You just got to, water's getting in there, air's getting in there, you name it, it's getting in there. We had to have a few of those taped up before the siding guys came. Over on the right, you can see all the air sealing. That looks like it was probably done by the 5-year-old. It's because it was me and I've never air sealed before, but I knew based on the nail holes in my WRB that I needed to do a little extra on the inside. Go ahead and change that one.
I love it.
After the you got neopor on the outside, then you've got the 1.5 to 2 inches. I did 2 inches of the closed cell foam in a few areas where I had bigger windows and less wall space. From there, I had them add in cellulose insulation on top of that, either directly on top of the wall tite or onto the concrete, like in the bottom of the right picture around that foundation in my basement area. And what that did is it really didn't cost a whole lot different than if I had just used all spray foam. The beauty of what it did was it gave me different methods of sound attenuation. You talked about my slope backyard, it's built into a hill basically. Up behind me is wetlands, and I've got a ridiculous amount of noise from birds and frogs and all cicadas, you name it, that's out there singing. And, if I want to hear it, I'll open my window, and if I don't, I'll close it up, and it's pretty darn quiet. Go ahead and change the next screen there. One of the best things that I love, the best quotes during the whole build process, was one of the trim carpenters told me over on the right-hand side. It's a really bad picture. It's the only one I had of the heating units. There were 2 of them in my house. We would not let them turn the heater on until the very end, with just before they installed the bamboo flooring, because it had to acclimate. Up until then, they were on their own. So they had a heater like that upstairs and downstairs. And literally, he says, when I build, I'm going to build like this, because we were in here all winter long. We're talking all the way to January. And, that thing hardly even kicked on. When it got warm, it stayed warm. And this is definitely the way to build.
Yeah, and you've heard, if you're in this industry and you're in construction, you have heard the nightmare stories of people that have run their furnaces and air conditionings during the construction process, and all those intakes just get filled with dust and debris, and then all of a sudden you're replacing something you just spent a lot of money on. So this is an added value that a lot of people do not talk about. We see it all the time, right, Mark? People will tape air filters over the vent holes and all of these other things, and it just doesn't make sense. If you build it right and you frame it right and you insulate it right, you don't need to go through all that. You can save the good stuff for last and turn it on when it's nice and clean, fresh and healthy. I love it.
Exactly. We covered it up with studs, or we covered it up with, all sorts of different things, and made sure it was perfectly sealed and nobody was opening it. Okay, go ahead and change that one. I think we're getting towards the end here. Yeah, the only other thing is we put in Anderson 400 windows, kind of a mid-grade window, not the super energy efficient, but pretty reasonable, pretty good for my climate zone. And we added the solar shades because we do have a lot of windows on the south-facing part of the house. We've got a lot of light coming in, and we wanted to mitigate that solar gain, so we put in some nice shades. Still lets us see out without bringing all that heat on in with it, and 100% LED lighting throughout the house.
Wow.
So that's it. Just a little bit more information on materials and methods and trade-offs and lessons learned.
Next.
Just talks about getting the R27 in there, the R10 or the neopor. Why I chose it was the long-term thermal value. It doesn't change over time. It's constant. You know, if you look at some of the other rigid board manufacturers, they don't tell you that it's decreasing over time, but if you look at the warranty, it's decreasing at the rate your R value is. So it's another thing I really appreciate about the neopor product is it stays the same.
I think this is a great time, Lisa, to challenge the audience that's not watching this on their phone. If they have it on a device, take a screenshot of this and share it with someone, because this right here is a recipe, right? It's a recipe of an option, right? Of a solution, and it also has the TER report that you mentioned there. So I think this is great, and for those that are looking to build or looking to design, have a gander at this, because we're talking an R27 wall, and that detail you said so clearly is you use 3 different types of insulation because they're each doing something different, right? That's an insightful comment. You weren't chasing an R value. You were creating results with different materials. Of course, you're an expert on materials. That helps, but it's brilliant. Thank you.
No, thank you. And that was one of the other things. There should never get water in my wall. But if by some chance it ever happens somehow, that cellulose in there will also help to kind of spread that out and allow it to dry over time. So it's not going to drop down and hit my bottom plate and rot out.
Wow. That's excellent. Excellent. Love it. Next slide.
So this talks a little bit about some of the material trade-offs. I get a lot of flack sometimes, you use too much spray foam, and yeah, I use some spray foam, but I traded some of that off. I don't have OSB, which has a lot of adhesives to make it. I don't have subfloor glue in my house. All that was removed because I used an engineered fastener called Tetragrip. It screws in basically out of a normal of, your pneumatic tools, but it screws in and it cannot come out. Yeah. So there's a lot of other trade-offs that I use. Some of the cellulose I talked about earlier, just a lot of different things to kind of make this make more sense. Low VOC paint, bamboo flooring. My basement's concrete. I don't even have a flooring down there because I put that R10 underneath. I didn't need to put down a wood or an LVL floor or anything like that. So I've got to have a concrete foundation, and it works just fine for a floor as well. Actually, love the looks of it.
So if we walk through your basement, your basement has insulation and a vapor membrane down, mm-hmm. right?
Correct.
And so crushed gravel, right? Insulation, vapor membrane, and then a few inches of the basement slab there, and then that thermal mass, because it has the sweater underneath it, is acclimating closer to the temperature, still slightly cooler, which is nice. It's what you want. And then you mentioned the Tetra grip on your subfloor for your first floor. And then could you also just highlight what that subfloor was, since we're going so deep on materials?
Yeah, no, it was basically your normal 1/2-inch tongue and groove subfloor. I can't tell you the brand. I was very specific on what I wanted, but the builder said, well, this is what I normally use. And I looked at what he was using, and I was okay with that. It was a little more generic, but a little thicker.
Okay.
Otherwise, I really wanted the LP with the Gorilla Glue in it, or the Advantech. They make a great subfloor. I spent a lot of time looking at subfloors.
And you know what? Once we get through this, I can pull up that pass load Tetra Grip, that system that you use, so people can see it.
Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Shout out to Pass Load. I think some of us are familiar with Pass Load, right?
If you're not, then you're probably not in the construction space.
So true. Go ahead, Jim.
For sure. Who doesn't know pass load? Awesome. And they're doing a lot of stuff in automated machinery as well now.
They're Alpine Group.
That's right. Love it. All right, moving on to the next slide.
Hey Dave, when I was a kid at the lumberyard, they used to give away pass load guns. It's a true story. So actually, in Illinois, that's where pass load was. They would give out pass load guns. Contractors would come in and we would give out guns. Do you know why they gave out pass load guns, Dave?
Because they knew people would use them, and it's good marketing.
They gave out the guns because people needed to buy the nails, right? And it was brilliant. And then there was an evolution in the guns over time. But true story, and I remember being there for it. Marketing
at its finest.
They were doing it until a couple of years ago, even.
It's kind of like Apple computers, right? Nobody has these things, so now you have to buy all these accessories and dongles to make everything work. The only difference is they're not giving their computers away, so maybe they ought to rethink how they do that. Moving on. Perfect.
So go ahead and change that one. This is a little bit about the blower door and my resulting energy bills.
The red door of death. I love it.
So that was the blower door test. I have two dryer vents. I have the one in the master closet, and then I have one downstairs that we don't have anything hooked up for. It's more for future use. For when we're done with this house and another bigger family may move into it, they could have a downstairs washer dryer unit as well. That one hadn't been capped off, so legitimately it probably would have come in under a 1. Yep. But my builder was happy because it was under 3. I was disappointed because it wasn't where I wanted it to be. But at the same time, we've still got reasonable energy bills I'm pretty happy with. We just got our gas bill literally today. My husband was kind enough to forward it on to me, $38.60. And there's probably some out there that say, well, it should be all electric, but there's nothing I could have done in my lifetime to convince my husband not to have a gas stove. So we went with a few other gas things since we were running that line. But yeah, it's still pretty minimal.
Beautiful.
Isn't that the give and take, Mark, that we see in home building with consumers all the time? There's always give and take. There's always a budget in play. And there are certain things, you're not going to see too many chefs out there wanting to use electric for cooking. You just don't see that. There's a difference for people.
They had some great induction stovetops that I was interested in, but that wasn't something I could have sold.
There's the world of compromise, right? Yeah. And clearly the main focus for you guys here was performance, and it was achieved. So, hey, let him cook more dinners on the stove that he prefers, and you can just tout to your neighbors your incredible efficiency when they compare their bills to yours. It's amazing.
Yeah, they probably don't want to hear mine because they're pretty darn good.
Well, and what's fun about this is when the gas bill goes to $40, you can yell at them.
There you go.
Would you leave it running for a month? Okay.
So this next slide is my favorite one. It's the lessons learned and what I would do different. What I was really disappointed in this whole process is the timing that we built is as good as it was to stay ahead of the lumber price. It was a bad time because I couldn't get T-studs. They just weren't available at that narrow window of time. But I would have, in a heartbeat, had those as my studs in my home, and it'd be a little bit more thermally efficient yet. One of the other newer products on the market with Neopor is you can get it with either furring strips built into it and some drainage plank, which is actually pretty nice for if you're using like a hardy board or an LP and you want that nailable surface. It's built right in. Or you can also get it with a WRB already attached on it, tape around it, and it's air and water barrier as well in that case.
That's incredible evolution in an already sound product to have those options. right? Because the options are there for a reason, right? The Neopor you used was brilliant, but now the fact that you can get it with a weather-resistant barrier or furring strips, can you get it with a WRB and furring strips?
No, it's an either or proposition, and I'm perfectly honest. I'm not sure. I probably would have gone with the furring strip in the front, with it, and I would have gone with the WRB around the rest, just because I wasn't as worried about that drainage plane or the nailable surface as I would have been up front. But again, the other thing was offsite construction. That would have been my preferred method. They were still closed. I reached out to 2 different manufacturers, tried hard to get a quote even, and just couldn't get it in the time frame that I needed, and started some conversations ahead of time, just couldn't get it wrapped up fast enough. And then up over on the right, it lists R Value Homes. They're a local builder who understand energy efficient building. I didn't choose them, and I paid some price for it along the way. By not having somebody who does continuous installation on every home. They may be familiar, but if they don't do it all the time, you're not going to get quite the same results out of it. And that crazy picture at the gone.
Oops, sorry.
Too much. That's okay. Too much lumber in my roof line. I followed my neighbor's style, and I wasted just a bunch of lumber I would never do again.
You know what, Lisa? The framers don't want to do it again either.
I have no doubt.
I bless your hearts, all the architects out there with these magical roofs. As a lifetime framer, there's nothing that I despise more than goofy roofs. There's always, like we talked about before, there's always a compromise. And I think it's really neat to hear those lessons learned, and that those folks that came up with the R Value Homes. Let's help these folks become a franchise. What a brilliant name. And what you said is very true about the offsite community. And the same was with site builders, right? We had a flux going on. It was very real. And we all know that construction did their best throughout this. And construction truly was a driving force of our economy because of people's go in there and get it done attitudes. And your house is exemplary of that, working through a pandemic.
So if there's any offsite construction guys out there, my challenge to you is to bring in some T-studs, bring in some spray foam and Neopor, and let's make my house across the country. The house I wanted.
I know that would make Brian and Mark very, very happy as well, for sure. But part of some of this is, everybody's so busy, like you found out, with trying to get your product in, and a lot of manufacturers are so busy that they're not going to change their lines up when they're busy or take that risk. And the new people that are coming on are looking at it differently and how they can build better and be more efficient. So it's really a double-edged sword, because when these factories slow up, now they go into hibernation mode. They don't want to spend the money, and they don't want to retool. They don't want to do these things. So we're in a funny time right now, but it's also the time of what I say, like the Ubers of the world. The new players are moving in very quickly. The investment money is moving in very quickly. We talk about it every day off of this show on what's happening. And I think people are going to be very surprised what goes on soon.
We always remember the last person to enter the telephone game is the person that's winning today, right?
That's right.
There's a small percentage of change that's needed for transformation, right? People are willing to move forward. Let's face it, a lot of the homes each of us grew up in had no insulation. They did have 2x4 walls. They were different 2x4s, but they had no insulation. And brilliant today. And I love the solar shading aspect that you brought up. I love the LEDs. So your energy efficiency is not just your walls and your envelope and your structure. It's in those appliances and the packages. And then there was a comment there that we really didn't megaphone, but it needs to be noted, is when you build a structure, you're building it hopefully for the test of time and for not only your lives, but the lives of the people that are in that building after. And you said age and place. And it's a great standard that doesn't really equate for a different dollar value,
That's right.
right? So why not do it?
Yeah.
Definitely easier to build it in at the time of construction, and we took every method of doing that after watching, parents get older and struggle. We didn't want to have those same challenges.
For sure.
Well, and I've said a million times, Lisa. We've talked about this. It's not just about age or anything else. Everyone can enjoy an age and place home, regardless. And then guess what? When you happen to break an ankle, or your neighbor happens to, and they don't have a loved one around, accessibility is there. It's just a great transfer. Brilliant.
It is. But let's take a moment, Mark. We've been at this for an hour now. We got to get to some comments and questions. We all love bantering. And again, Lisa, lessons learned. And Mark, we'll touch on this when I come back. But let's talk about when we come back, Mark, how valuable one of your lessons learned was hiring the people that know how to do it up front, because I heard you say that it costs you money by not doing that. But first, let's go to comments and questions. All right. Who's up? Joe Hutchins says, happy Friday. Joe clearly is from Australia because he doesn't know how to spell Friday. Isn't it supposed to be Phriday? I mean, come on, Joel.
Joel, send me your address. I'll give you the PH dictionary and I'll throw a hat in it.
There you go. All right. Ron Height. Oh, go back to that first one there, Jen. We missed it. Go ahead, Mark.
So Ron says, congrats, Lisa. And we echo that on your new role at BASF. Well deserved.
Well
Amen.
deserved. Well deserved. Okay. Maynard Clark says, let's say that I am interested in building for myself and some rental units, hypoallergenic 4-unit, 2-story, 3-story dwelling powered by attached solar. Can your materials help me do that? Remember, hypoallergenic, solar powered, basement parking for all 4 units. Now, Mark, before Mark and you get in this, we've been on the show for an hour. I already know this question here. We could educate the daylights out of this one, but let's get into it. Go ahead. Who wants to take it?
Well, the first answer is brief, and I'll just say yes, right? So one of the things a well-sealed up building does is it controls what comes in and out. If you want surprises like critters, rodents, and allergies and mold and mildew, don't seal your building, right? I can take you to the building I grew up in, and you could have all sorts of nastiness. And then on top of it, you mentioned the solar. So you're interested in renewable or site-fed electric. It's brilliant, Maynard. So I always say before you go into the world of renewables, the world starts with the envelope. So when the building is requiring less energy, now you don't need as many panels, right? You need less panels. So focus on your envelope, whether it's an existing building or a new structure. The envelope is approached first. And then say you don't have the funds for the solar. You can provide the conduit to make it solar ready. If you have a gas fed house, you can provide the conduit so that those appliances can be switched. Just like Lisa, she made the laundry ready in the basement if they need it later. So those are small ticket items. A piece of conduit for solar ready to be put in is $60. That's it. So you're done. So those are the steps you can do very efficiently and with great success.
Yeah, and if Maynard, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, you should check it out. We had Cheryl Sika on our show talking about sick buildings. If you really want to truly understand how important this is, episode 33, is that what it was, Mark?
Episode 3, brother.
Episode 3. I was like, okay, man, he's got that right there. I need that. But check that out. Go check out the sick buildings episode. You will be very surprised that maybe you don't have allergies. Maybe your kids don't have allergies. Maybe those migraine headaches are not because you have something wrong with you. It could very well be your home. So check that show out. It's a very, very scary thing once you start learning about the science.
Dave, we also had the lemon pledge test, right? The Hayward score.
The Hayward score, right?
and Prudence Ferreira did the same thing. Matt from Rise, Matt Daigle, said the same thing. I think that has come up a couple times. Even Joe Konopacki and Corbett did it. So it's a reoccurring theme, Maynard. And Jen already posted the YouTube page for people to reference that. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Maynard.
Build tight, ventilate right.
That's right. That's right. Hey, go ahead. You want to read this one for us, Lisa?
Great show with Lisa, Mark, and Dave. Way to go, I'm assuming. Way to go with Jen, too.
Yeah. So, all right, everybody. Greg Ugaldi in the house from Twitch. Greg Ugaldi is the immediate past chairman of the National Association of Home Builders. He is still making one trip around the world with NAHB and a big supporter. And tune in for Greg. Greg's on the show once a month, giving high-level updates from Washington, D.C. So we appreciate you, Greg. Thank you. Go ahead, Mark.
Tom Reddy. Tom, I don't think you've missed an episode. If anyone is over by the Carolinas, visit Tom. Beautiful man. So he says here today, it's great to hear about setting the goals up front and referring back to them during construction. This really builds in the value engineering and doesn't allow overkill. Amen. Every time, Tom, you're on it, brother.
You said it wrong, Mark. Is everybody, Yins all know Tom Reddy? Tom's from Pittsburgh, and we say Yins in Pittsburgh. I'm from Pittsburgh. So, but yeah, he is. The factories in the Carolinas and in Georgia. Tom is a huge supporter. So we'll be seeing Yins guys later. Andrew Seeley's in the house. Quieter job sites are better places to work. Ours is powered by solar. Doesn't get much better unless it's off-site. Andrew Seeley and GPOT, another person out there that's a huge supporter of this industry, always putting the good knowledge out. And if you don't know what GPOTs are, you should check them out because they are beyond super cool.
I want to echo what was said because what Andrew referenced is very close to what Maynard was saying. So Maynard, after the building is designed and modeled for solar, so you can go ahead and put the solar station up before construction. So you're minimizing impact during construction. And that's what Andrew is referencing. They put up their solar array before they began construction. Many of their elements, of course, were produced off-site. But then the battery-powered tools, right, in the palm of our hand, those are all powered by the sun. It's amazing, right? Beautiful thing. So think about that, folks. When you want to tread lightly, just reach to the sun. That power is there.
Yeah, for sure. Mark, I got to say it. This is the world where the Teslas are going to start charging our houses. The sun's going to charge our house. We are not going to be charging our houses to charge the Teslas any longer. And if you're out there listening, Mr. Musk, don't take it personally, man. I love everything you do.
Lisa, Dave's doing a lot of references today. So when Brandon Weiss was on, his net zero development is designed for there's 2 Teslas in the community. And when your power goes out for a long time, it kind of doesn't matter because they're passive houses. They can last for a few days. But the refrigerator and the ventilation system is wired to your solar panels, and you could run the house off the Tesla when that's allowed. Right now, you're not allowed to do it. But, yep, that was there. Real deal. I have no idea what episode that was, Dave, but Google BS Friday, Brandon Weiss.
That's a great option because at that point when you need your refrigerator running because you have no power, going somewhere in your car is a little less important at that moment in time.
That's right.
Yep.
That is right. All right. Bob Kelly, go ahead there, Mark.
So Bob Kelly, great friend of ours. R27 is fabulous with a PH. Is there a capillary break at the footings? How about this? Targeted one, Lisa.
Yeah, that one I knew and checked the builder had. He had that factored in.
Excellent.
That's huge.
That's a whole show right there talking about that, eh, Mark?
and Maynard, that's what Bob brought it up. Lisa seconded. Like it's not like She was so surprised in her face, right? These are check boxes. They were all lined ahead of time of whoever had that other comment. Tom Reddy. That's what it is. They're check marks.
That's it. Scott Farbman in the house. I came in late with such a robust envelope. Lisa, what is your ventilation strategy? And are you monitoring indoor air quality? And before you say something, Lisa, I know just from looking ahead at your slideshow that this was about to come up in the slides. So we can either answer it now or we can get through the rest of the deck in a few minutes here and then answer it. It's up to you.
Let's go ahead and bring that slide up. I think it just makes it a nice little graphic to look at while I talk about it. And
there you go. Let's answer.
You heard my comment on build right and ventilate right. These are the basics of what we have in place. We've got a, Goodman furnace. We've got a Panasonic ERV. We've got the April air humidity control. Change that slide. Here's where it really comes into play. We have the Panasonic Cosmos system. I'm an allergy sufferer, and I've got wetlands with trees and animals and pollen you can't even imagine 10 feet off of my back door. And so it was really important to me to have all this kind of not only built in for that fresh air to come in, but also to make it automated so I don't have to think about it, because it doesn't always happen as it should if that's their case. So what we've got is we've got the brain system, that top left box you're looking at there. It automatically has sensors that tie into 3 different bathroom fans that will automatically vent out if I need to get rid of bad air. And then I've got a device that's going to bring in fresh air. And then I have a monitoring device that I can actually look at on my phone. And if you see that number 1, it's kind of the only thing you can read. It says great. Yep. That's my indoor air quality. It tells me my CO2 levels. It tells me my VOC levels, my particulate levels, and my humidity levels. So it monitors all that for me, and I can see at any given time if I've got an issue going on. The biggest pollutant I've brought into my house is my dog Willow and my occasional cooking mishaps. But for the most part, yeah, it's extremely clean. Even when we first moved in, the VOCs were extremely low because of the material choices we made. The Echo-Bees, the bottom one, and I only show 3 because I ran out of room, but I've got 5 sensors throughout my house that are different zones. And it'll sense if the room is occupied or not, and it changes the temperatures based on where people are spending time. So if I'm not in my office, it's going to probably drop 4 to 5 degrees in the winter, and alternately higher in the summer.
Love it. We got more comments to get to as well, Mark.
I was going to say, Dave, I always thought that Panasonic, so no one knows when you turn on a Panasonic, no one knows it's on, right? It's so quiet. I always thought that they should engineer that with the clapper so you can walk in. My house is ventilated, right? It's 2 claps to ventilate. This is really good. And a lot of folks in our industry, we don't get into the ventilation as much as we should. Scott, of course, is an expert, and we always appreciate his comments. And that's just my cue to say next week, what a beautiful segue you created, Lisa. We're talking about ventilation and certification with Michael Franco of FIAS. So this is perfect. And I've used those Panasonics. And it's always the case. People are like, the bath fan isn't on. Nope, the bath fan is on. You just can't hear it. That's when you know you have a good bath fan.
Isn't that when the hair goes up and gets caught in the vent? The toupee, right? You're standing there and the hair gets shucked up. Yeah, for you, you'd be stuck to the ceiling with your beard. We have quite a few more comments to get through. We're at 1 hour and 17 minutes. We have questions out there. So let's run through these questions because it's so important to answer people from our audience. And then we'll get through. There's only a couple more slide deck pages anyhow. So we'll run through it. Scott Farman, Dave Cooper, the best chefs in the world use induction cooking. So you are wrong, sir. Oh, I'm
wow,
wrong.
Dave, get your diary out, brother. It's the first time you've been wrong. This is great. Scott, thanks for keeping us honest. Love it.
For sure.
I should have sent my husband to you for that conversation, obviously.
There you go. So from now on, We're just going to forward everyone to Scott Farman. You're going to be our induction police, brother.
How about that? All right. Go ahead, Mark. Take this one. Maynard Clark had a follow-up.
Yeah, and thank you for the follow-up. We love the engagement, and we'd love, Maynard, we'd love to hear what you do. I don't know that I've met you before, and Dave and I aren't on here just to hear our voices. In fact, we're here to hear your voices. Is why we're on here. So I would prefer electric for cooking because I don't want to release methane into the shared atmosphere. Methane, interesting. I would prefer chocolate chip cookies. He's cooked in hotels and restaurants and home. Prefer electric for the sake of animals in the house ecosystem, and this applies to, right? When you have a cooktop and when you have a stove, whether it's electric or gas, this goes back to the ventilation, right? So you want fresh air coming in, but we know that a lot of these hoods are just put in because you're supposed to have a hood. They're often not what you need for the volume of air or what you cook. So if you're making lobster or if you're making pasta, right, you have an incredible amount of vapor coming off of there. It's not just about odors. It's not just about grease. It's about humidity and vapor. So regardless of how you cook, think about that cooktop and think about that fresh air for those comments, just like Maynard said. Thank you for that.
Learning something every day. Learning something. Ron Height, blower door ACH results of 1.1 is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, Ron, we actually know that that's less because there was, a hole about this big. So you're probably around 0.8, give or take, which is great. Dr. Rebecca, the good doctor.
The good doctor's in the house.
Let's take that energy to change our school buildings and teach our kids, our children, to understand the energy efficient buildings. Okay, so we have an ambassador for children. Doctor, you're in charge of that one. So you're looking for safety in schools, as are we. I need ideas for buildings for places such as high SCRIME, which is crime, areas where school children can be safe. Well, this is interesting. So no, you're fine.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know about safety. That's a larger topic, but safety in terms of health, safety in terms of comfort, safety in terms of less waste on the energy, and we know through the studies that a building without VOCs and a building with fresh air movement and a building without hot spots and cold spots, people are going to be less sick and more alert, right? I think each of us, Lisa, Dave, and I, have been to schools maybe in sixth grade where it's June. We have that final exam to take. There's no AC. The big windows are just baking in on you, and you're hot. You're not able to think clear. You're like, get me out of here. And so when you're in a comfortable space, when you're in a quiet space, you're allowed to use the gifts that you were given. And that's what we need to achieve.
Yeah, for sure. And reach Jennifer, if you could just send a message to the good doctor. We are streaming this education into universities across the country, high schools and grade schools and tech schools. So we do have a program that we've been working on where we are sharing this information. We are teaching the younger generation about all the great opportunities within our industry, but also, just like on this show, about the energy efficiencies and science behind why we do what we do and why building the way we have been building for 100 years is not right anymore. Times have changed. We're getting better. We're getting smarter. We're getting healthier. And we need to save the planet for those children that it sounds like you're probably teaching on a regular basis. So really appreciate that. And have your students comment. We would love to hear from the younger generation. Have them jump on, ask questions. Heck, we'll even send them a link and bring them onto the show every once in a while. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Oh, speaking of that, we didn't do it and we were going to do it. you gave away a ticket to the NAPHN conference. We were going to show the video of the kids. So next week we have Lisa's TER report, and we won't do the video next week. We'll do it the following week. So perfect. We'll get that video to you, Rebecca. No worries.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Next comment I saw, Steve Hailstrom. Go ahead, Mark.
Stephen Hailstrom. Question, and thanks for using the cue, brother. Hello to Lisa. I am ready, willing, and able to get some modular product built with your system. When can you get to Canada? Well, we can all get to Canada virtually, and I don't know where you are in Canada. There's a lot of provinces up there. So Lisa, Dave, myself, and you, we can all have a little talk about making that possible because we all have those connections for you to get there.
Yeah, for
You either
sure.
got to open the borders or tell us the route to sneak in, because I don't think it's possible at the moment.
I think I heard from the grapevine that those borders are opening in just a few weeks, and
Awesome.
we do have people in Canada that I know Mark's systems as well as ours and Lisa. So Jen, if we want to send out a Calendly invite, we can definitely help you with that. We spend a lot of time working with manufacturers and suppliers like Lisa and others to help educate and bring systems online in manufacturing facilities. So if you are a manufacturer or a builder, you've come to the right place. Thank you for reaching out.
I have a funny comment. I use that Calendly thing, Dave, and I think that's an interesting thing to put in our chat, that we can schedule a meeting so we can all talk. I have to say, there's some shortcomings with Calendly because it often doesn't give the person's phone number and then how you're supposed to actually have the meeting. But what you said is pretty brilliant. And I would like to talk to that fellow as a group in Canada, Lisa and Dave and Jennifer, if you're interested. Let's try doing that, because a couple of these folks, like the Good Doctor and there's 3 people besides Scott Farman, I think we could have a group chat with. That'd be a good Zoom.
Yeah, for sure. And Mark, to answer your question on the calendar, you just have to make it part of one of your mandatory questions, which is, and then they have to put it in the schedule. So we can fix that for you, brother.
Sometimes building science is easier than
technology.
What this
Computer
is rocket science, right?
Perfect. Next question. Andrew Wilkinson, 100% on utilizing solar is the way to go. Get away from diesel generators, petrol generators. Look at reducing the carbon footprint. All right, Andrew from the UK in the house. Thank you, buddy.
Andrew's been posting all week long. If anyone's
busy, huh?
There's always good people to follow. Speaking of good people to follow, Adam, Dr. Rebecca, love it. Love these comments. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, we had Gilbert from Honduras. MMC3 was on,
right.
Showed up. Okay, next question, comment. All right, last one. Here it is. Scott Farman. Go ahead, Mario. Here we go. Scott, I'm not even going to read it. Scott beating up on me again?
No. Scott says, I love you, Dave. If Tesla allowed their car batteries to be bi-directional, it would kill their Powerwall product. LOL. Love it. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
Great. We're at an hour and 27 minutes. Lisa, you are a popular person, and I think it's because you've been doing amazing things. So I hope you rub off on me a little bit, because I'd love to have some of that karma and juice that you have. With that said, we have a few more slides to get through. Are we about done with the slide, or how many we got to go?
There's just a couple. We don't have to go through them. If you get time, we'll just breeze through.
You took time out of your day to spend with us. Let's get through the full presentation, and let's just round robin as quickly as we can through them, and we'll wrap it up from there. Here we go.
So we covered this one. Last one's the aging in place. So it was just one more.
Yep.
0-step entry, easy one. 36-inch wide doorways all throughout the upper floor. The basement, you don't need a 36-inch wide doorway, or you can't get down the stairs. So it's only the upper floor that has that. ADA height on the kitchen counters and the appliances. And that was in the sink. It was almost an accident. We didn't design it that way initially. We went back later as we got closer to the building and checked, and it fit. So it's at the other end, but it works. Main floor laundry right inside the master closet. Roll-in shower in the master closets. That, I think, bottom right picture. It's a horrible picture, but and then there's the zero transitions. There's only 2 types of flooring on the main floor. You could literally roll a marble across it and not see it bounce.
Wow.
It's great. I believe in the no transitions. And go ahead and wrap it up, Lisa. This is a great slide.
Here's the ending there. I want to thank everybody for their time and attention. This has been a lot of fun. I greatly appreciate Mark and Dave having me on the show and having fun with me here. Remember, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. Got to keep taking those steps forwards. How can you move your building methods, materials, or overall solutions forward this year? There's lots of ways to build and move forward. Find one that works for you.
I don't think there's anything left to say. Lisa, thank you. Thank you so much for taking time to join us today, and to all the people out there that were commenting and watching, and those that weren't commenting, just watching. We appreciate each and every one of you, because we know you're here to learn something. Hopefully every week on BS Friday, we are bringing you value. That's the whole idea of what we do. And please like and share all of this information, and we'll share your information. We need to work together to spread the world. We need to spread the word through the world. And if we collaborate and come together, we will no longer be only 5% or less of this industry. We can be a larger share of this industry, but we need everybody to do their part. And that starts not only on this show, but as we had with the good doctor, it starts with the youth that are coming into this world of ours, construction, offsite construction, and new building techniques like Lisa was talking about today. And Lisa, beautiful home. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're all very blessed you came on today. I appreciate letting us into your home, letting us into your project. Appreciate everyone's questions, and we would love to have you back again, Lisa. Really, I'll say it again: a 2x4 and no OSB. You nailed it.
I like the term.
Literally.
Thank you very much for having me, guys.
She fastened it, by the way, Mark. She didn't nail it. She fastened it. Terminology. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Mark. Lisa, please stay right there. We will come back to you after the outro, so do not go anywhere. And for everybody else out there, we will see you tomorrow on Coffee with Dave. That'll be 9 a.m. Eastern time, 7 a.m. Mountain time, and 6 a.m. I guess Pacific. Am I right on that? 6? Yeah. So we're all over the place enjoying this, but join us tomorrow. We'll talk about this past week's happening and what's coming up next week. And we'll see you tomorrow with Coffee with Dave. Bye, everybody.